Picture this, my fine listeners, Lewis Hamilton, the titan of the track, in his 16th season, no less, has had his least triumphant and most vexing season to date. Hasn't seen the top of the podium, nor basked in the glory of a pole position, trailing his teammate George Russell by a bitter 35 points. Yet, the phoenix that is Hamilton, has shown an upward trend compared to the previous year, wringing out more from the Mercedes W14 than even Russell. 4 podium finishes are under his belt thus far, and he hasn't once dropped below 8th place in any race. A masterclass in persistence, wouldn't you say? A truly timeless character he is, magnificently holding off Alonso in Australia, clawing his way from the 10th position to 6th in Baku, and claiming a solid 4th place in Monaco's iconic circuit. And then there's Lando Norris, the senior stalwart in McLaren's arsenal. Following a decent run last year when he secured the 7th spot overall, he's faced a tough 2023, marred by challenging pre-season tests for McLaren. Yet, our man Norris has consistently hit the mark, accruing points in several races and showing his mettle. He finished 9th in Baku, qualified 3rd in Barcelona, and clinched back-to-back podiums in Silverstone and Hungary, proving his podium prowess and potential for the second half of the season. And of course, we can't forget the formidable Fernando Alonso, the skilled veteran aged 42, who silenced naysayers and justified Aston Martin's decision to have him on board. Sitting pretty in 3rd place in the championship, he's just 1 point clear of Hamilton. Alonso's delivered 6 podium finishes and has been the closest rival to the dominant Red Bulls. Outshining his teammate Lance Stroll, Alonso's exhibited his finesse and seasoned experience as a driver, remaining steadfast even as Aston Martin's pace wanes against their adversaries. Finally, reigning world champion Max Verstappen appears to be unstoppably cruising towards his 3rd consecutive championship. His season has been nothing short of an epic, having seized victory in 10 out of 12 races thus far. Verstappen has galloped ahead of his teammate Sergio Perez, carving out a stark performance gap. His victories include a dazzling comeback, going from 9th to 1st in Miami, and a comfortable win in Spa. His supremacy is crystal clear, and it's likely he'll continue to rule the roost in the second half of the season, performing at a level unparalleled by any other driver on the grid. In a nutshell, the mid-season driver rankings illuminate the prowess of these top drivers in the 2023 Formula One season. Hamilton, Norris, Alonso, and Verstappen have all displayed their skills, resilience, and capacity to handle pressure. The second half of the season promises to serve up more thrilling races and intense rivalries between these drivers. Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up, it's set to be a historic ride. Well, isn't this an exciting turn of events, listeners? This is George, your Thursday morning guide through the world of Formula One, and I'm here with the ever-insightful, sharp-as-a-tack William. We're shaking things up a bit for F1 Motor Fever podcast special Thursday morning episodes. Usually, you'd have Enzo leading the charge, but today you're stuck with us, William.
That's right, George. And we promise to make it worth your while, listeners.
Absolutely, William. We're here to explore epic, historical, and downright fascinating stories from the world of Formula One. Now, I can't stress this enough, folks, if you're enjoying your time with us, do subscribe to the F1 Motor Fever podcast channel. Ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode. Drop us a comment, share the love with your friends and family, it greatly helps to keep this engine running.
Indeed, every bit of support counts.
Today we're delving into the mid-season driver rankings of the 2023 Formula One season. Why, you might ask? Because it's a testament to the skill, resilience, and pure guts of the drivers we cherish. It's a nail-biting, tire-scorching, history-in-the-making kind of season, and trust me, you don't want to miss it.
Absolutely, George. Every twist and turn, every victory and defeat, it all adds up to an exhilarating story, doesn't it?
Spot on, William. So, if you want more details, stick with us because we've got the pedal to the metal and we're going full throttle. Let's delve a bit deeper, shall we? This 16th season for Lewis Hamilton has been a bit of a roller coaster, hasn't it? It's been the least successful and most frustrating of his illustrious career. For the first time, he's ended a full season without a single race win or pole position, finishing the year 35 points behind his younger teammate, George Russell.
That's right. And yet, at the halfway point of 2023, Hamilton hasn't managed to notch up a win in the ground effect era. All hopes of an 8th title have been dashed by the unassailable dominance of Max Verstappen. But Hamilton has rebounded from last year's slump and seems to be regaining his footing over Russell.
Absolutely. Regardless of the Mercedes W14 not being as strong as he or his team would have liked, Hamilton has managed to extract more from it than Russell. With 4 podium appearances in Melbourne, Barcelona, Montreal, and Silverstone, he's only been outdone by the 2 Red Bulls and Fernando Alonso.
Not to mention, he's one of only 3 drivers, alongside Verstappen and Alonso, to have scored points in all Grand Prix so far this year. That feat becomes even more impressive when you consider the fluctuating team rankings behind Red Bull in the first half of the season.
Indeed. Even when Aston Martin was the clear runner-up at the start of the season, Hamilton managed to keep Alonso at bay for most of the Australian Grand Prix. And even in Baku, when Ferrari had the upper hand, Hamilton managed to claw back from 10th to 6th.
Yes, he has shown his mettle when the pressure is on. Hamilton also had a strong run of races in Europe, outperforming Russell in Monaco, and staying cool under pressure in the rain to finish 4th. All this goes to show that despite the challenges, Hamilton's skill and experience keep shining through.
It's interesting to see how a driver handles the ups and downs of a season, isn't it? Hamilton has had his fair share, yet he's managed to churn out some remarkable performances.
Indeed. He's shown us his mettle quite a few times this season. I'm particularly impressed by his performance in Barcelona, where he made up for a snap of oversteer to secure his 2nd podium finish of the season.
Right you are. And don't forget about Montreal, where even with Aston Martin pulling towards the top, Hamilton still managed to show impressive pace, lining up 3rd before beating Alonso off the line.
Absolutely, and despite falling to 3rd, he kept pace and took 3rd on the podium again. He's truly had the measure of Russell this season.
Yes, apart from that little hiccup in Austria where he faced his worst finish of the season, Hamilton has been consistently strong. He's wrapped up the first half of the season on a high note with 2 memorable results, including a podium at Silverstone and his first pole position in a year and a half at Hungaroring.
That's quite an achievement, but it's not been a perfect ride. His clash with Perez in the Spa sprint race is a prime example. However, he's been one of the more consistently strong performers in the fastest cars in the field.
Now, let's shift gears and talk about Lando Norris, who's been having quite a season with McLaren, hasn't he?
That he has. Locked out of the fight at the front of the field with Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes so far ahead, Norris still had his best season in Formula One last year. He was the only driver to score a podium finish outside of the top 3 teams all year.
That's quite the accomplishment, especially considering he's now heading into his first season in Formula One as the undisputed senior driver in his team. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. It appears things didn't start off as planned for Norris and McLaren this season, did they?
That's correct. The pre-season test for McLaren was less than ideal, leaving team CEO Zak Brown to admit they had fallen short of their targets for the year's start.
Norris had a rough start too, didn't he? Pitting 6 times due to a pneumatic failure in Bahrain, and then an uncharacteristic mistake during qualifying in Jeddah.
Yes, indeed. And damage in the opening lap of the race wasn't his fault either, as he ran into debris from his teammate's car. But post-Jeddah, Norris has had consistently strong performances.
Correct, he climbed his way up to 8th in Melbourne, securing his first points, and then in Baku, he was the best of the rest, finishing 9th. Quite remarkable given the performance of his car.
Absolutely, the points might have been hard to come by, but it wasn't for lack of effort. Norris has shown his tenacity, like when he was blocked by Leclerc in Monaco, or when an unfortunate touch with Hamilton in Barcelona damaged his front wing and cost him the race.
True, even when he had to face penalties, like in Montreal, Norris didn't let it deter him. And then things really took a turn for the better at the Red Bull Ring, didn't they?
They certainly did. With new upgrades at his disposal, Norris immediately made use of them, qualifying 4th on Friday, and then 3rd in sprint qualifying. He even surpassed Hamilton's Mercedes to finish 5th, which became 4th thanks to a penalty for Sainz.
But Silverstone was a game-changer for Norris, wasn't it? He secured a front-row start alongside Verstappen, held his nerve to keep Hamilton at bay, and secured a memorable home podium in 2nd place. Quite the feat, I must say.
Absolutely, and Norris didn't stop there. He continued his strong performance in Hungary, qualifying 3rd, overtaking Hamilton and undercutting Piastri to move up to 2nd. It's clear he's been making the most of every opportunity.
Now let's turn our attention to a driver who's been showing us that age is just a number, shall we?
Are we talking about Fernando Alonso?
Absolutely, we are. Going into a season where he would turn 42 at a new team, Alonso has been silencing his doubters.
He certainly has. He's proven his worth to Aston Martin and currently sits in 3rd place in the championship. This is quite impressive, especially considering this is his first season with Aston Martin.
What's more, he's only 1 point ahead of Hamilton, which speaks volumes both about Alonso's performance and the Silverstone squad. Alonso has looked reinvigorated this season.
Indeed, with 6 podiums in the first 12 rounds, 9 top 5 finishes, and more time in second place than any other driver, including Sergio Perez, Alonso has shown his worth.
And even after over 360 Grand Prix starts, Alonso has shown that he still retains his edge as a driver. Even an opening lap hit from his teammate Lance Stroll didn't stop him from securing a podium finish in his first start in British Racing Green in Bahrain.
That's right. And in Jeddah, after being promoted to the front row thanks to Leclerc's grid penalty, he beat pole winner Perez off the line. Alonso has truly been a force to reckon with this season.
So, it looks like we might be seeing Norris in the fight for more podiums in the second half of the season. If that's the case, he'll be a challenging contender for those at the front. And Alonso, it seems, is set to give everyone a run for their money. Quite the season we have on our hands, isn't it? Alonso's journey throughout this season has been quite interesting, hasn't it? He was the clear closest contender to the Red Bulls at the early stage of the season, and even though he was beaten by Hamilton in Melbourne, he maintained his run of podiums.
I'm sorry, could you clarify that a bit more?
Of course. Alonso was consistently securing places on the podium in the early part of the season. In Melbourne, although he wasn't able to surpass Hamilton, he still retained a place on the podium.
Ah, I see. Thanks for explaining.
And although his podium streak ended in Baku, Alonso continued to show good form. He made a brilliant move after the safety car restart, and in Miami, he was comfortably ahead of everyone else apart from the Red Bulls.
What about his performance in Monaco?
In Monaco, he nearly secured his first pole position in over a decade. Although rain put a damper on his chances of jumping Verstappen for the lead during the race, he was once again a bigger challenge for Verstappen than his own teammate.
How did he perform at his home race in Spain?
Oddly enough, Spain was the only time in the first half of the season where Alonso was outperformed by his teammate, Stroll. He damaged his floor in an error during Q1, which left him ninth on the grid, and he settled for finishing behind Stroll in the race.
And how did Alonso fare in Montreal?
Montreal was another highlight for Alonso. He secured another front row start and managed to take Hamilton's second place early on in the race. Despite being asked to keep saving fuel throughout the race, he kept Hamilton at bay to secure his 6th podium in second place.
You know, talking about these races brings back some vivid memories of my childhood. I remember when I was a lad of about 7 or 8, in Birmingham, I used to take the races and watch them over and over again. I'd analyze every turn, every overtake, every pit stop. And then, I'd grab my old toy cars and recreate the races on the living room floor.
So, you were a commentator in the making from an early age, huh?
Seems so. Now, let's talk about the driver who is storming his way towards his 3rd consecutive World Championship. Max Verstappen.
Verstappen's dominance has been noteworthy, hasn't it?
Absolutely. With 10 rounds remaining in 2023, he only needs to win half of them to match his last year's record of winning 15 Grand Prix.
That's a tall order, but given his performance so far, it seems achievable.
True. The Red Bull's RB19 might end up being one of the most successful and dominant Formula One cars in history, and that's largely down to Verstappen. He's widened the performance gap between him and his teammate Perez significantly in the first half of the season.
It's worth noting though that the 2 rounds where Perez beat Verstappen to victory, Jeddah and Baku, were arguably due to Verstappen's bad luck.
Ah, true. But then again, that's racing for you. It's a mix of skill, strategy, and a little bit of luck. Brings me back to those days of recreating races on the living room floor. It wasn't just about the fastest car, was it? It was about the timing of the pit stops, the strategy, the overtakes. You never knew what could happen next, and that's the thrill of it. Moving on from personal anecdotes, Verstappen's performance this season has been phenomenal, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. He's currently on an 8-round winning streak. If he continues this form, he might even be within reach of matching Sebastian Vettel's all-time run of 9 in Zandvoort after the break and potentially setting a new record at Monza.
Verstappen seems unstoppable at this point, doesn't he?
Certainly seems so. Given his winning margin in Spa over the first non-Red Bull was 32 seconds, it's hard to see Verstappen being beaten at any point until the end of the championship.
Quite a strong weekend for Verstappen in Spa, wasn't it?
Indeed. He set the fastest time in Friday qualifying, overcame a penalty by securing pole for the sprint race, overtook Oscar Piastri to win it, and then cruised to an easy Grand Prix victory on Sunday.
Some may argue that Verstappen is flattered by the performance of his car. What do you think?
It's easy to argue that, but when you compare the advantage that the RB19 has had over its rivals to other dominant F1 cars like McLaren's MP4 from 1988, Michael Schumacher's championship-winning Ferraris, or even Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes, it's clear that Verstappen is simply performing at a higher level than anyone else on the grid.
It's not a question of if he will eventually claim this season's championship, it's a question of when.
Indeed. If he continues how he has done, this could be another record-breaking second half of the season for Verstappen. Well, that's us racing to the finish line for today's episode of F1 Motor Fever podcast. We've had a fantastic time talking about Max Verstappen's phenomenal performance this season. We hope you've enjoyed listening as much as we have discussing. Remember, your support keeps our engines running, so don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Your comments and shares really help us reach more Formula One enthusiasts like you.
Absolutely, every like, share and comment gives us an extra boost, just like a well-timed doctor's. And if you thought this episode had twists and turns, just you wait. We've got so much more in store for you. Keep an eye out for our special episode coming up on Thursday morning.
Shout out to our friend Enzo, we know he's going to love this episode. Thanks to all of you for being such awesome fans. We can't wait to bring you more compelling content in our next episode.
And let's not forget our catchphrase as we sign off. George and William together, pedal to the metal, keep your gaze on the road, our channel's content is pure gold. See you next time, folks.